How's it going? Adam Drake here, and today I have the new Futaba T10PX radio system. Now, I'm going to do a number of videos on the T10PX, but for today it's going to be more of just kind of a brief overview of the new radio, talk a little bit about some of the new features. What you'll notice first when pulling the T10PX out of the box is it's lighter compared to the previous model, the 7PXR. And also, there's two versions of receivers, so you can get the radio with the R404 SBS receiver, which would be used for nitro racing, or the R404 SBSE, which is the electric version. Now, you can use the E or the just standard SBS for nitro or electric, but it's recommended to use the SBSE for electric and the SBS for nitro. The reason for that is the R404 SBS has an external antenna, so you'll have a little bit more range, and it's just a little bit safer for nitro vehicles. I recommend using this for anything 8 scale, so whether it's nitro or electric, buggy or truggy, I use the R404 SBS. The receiver is quite a bit smaller than the previous receivers. And the nice thing is with the T10PX is the receivers are reverse compatible. So if you have an older receiver, like I used to use the R324 SBS or R334, you can still use those receivers with the T10PX. You will just have to adjust the receiver setting when you go to bind it to those receivers. So you'll have to select from the menu the type of receiver that you're using. Now, there's not as many features or channels that you can use when using the older receivers, but for the use that I do for just actual racing, where you only have a couple channels, the old receivers work just fine. The response time, everything like that is still great. So nothing to worry about. If you have a bunch of old receivers, you can use them with the T10PX, and then you can upgrade at a later date to the R404 SBSs. Now, in the box, the radio also comes with the drop down. It also has the attachments to where you can angle the steering wheel. It has a larger steering wheel as an option. And there's also a few different grips that come stock in the box. As far as the trigger goes, you can adjust the trigger not only front to back, depending on the size of your hand. You can also angle the trigger slightly. So for me, I prefer to just have the trigger straight, but it is an option to where you can angle the trigger if needed. The radio is compatible or works for both right-handed or left-handed racers. And there's a lot of new like button switches. For myself as a racer, I don't use all of the features that come on this radio. It's so advanced, but it's really cool that you have those options. You can use them if you choose to, or you can disable them. Sometimes guys will be afraid that they don't want to hit certain switches or buttons on the radio. Those can all be disabled to where it makes it really easy to not screw up anything. As far as the battery goes, I use the same battery that I use in my car. I use the Flashpoint 2500 milliamp receiver pack. Part number is FP2001. You can run a LiFePO battery if you want, but I've used LiPo batteries, 2S LiPo batteries in all my Futaba radios, and they work good, hold up good. So that just makes it nice for me is to use the same battery that's in my car as what's in my transmitter system. I only have to have one spare for kind of all uses. So with the T10PX, it has the colored touchscreen, just like on some of the previous Futaba radios. The screen is slightly larger. It's very close in size, but I believe it's just a couple millimeters bigger. And there's a bunch of different menus you can use. So you can use just the standard menu and it'll go through all the different system, model menu, linkage menu, racing menu, or you can customize the user menu. So if you have certain things that you use more frequently or you want to get to a little bit quicker, you can customize that user menu. And for the most part, it has all the just normal bells and whistles or standard things that came on previous models like expo, speed, traction control, response. But there is one new feature that I do like to use that I will talk more about in other videos, but there's a response setting. So the way that the radio comes, the default is the response adjuster is turned off and the response of the radio is in its fastest setting. But you can turn the response adjuster on and then you can adjust for steering and throttle. There's 6 steps, so 1 through 6, the response for the radio. So again, we'll talk more about that in future videos, but default is that's shut off and the radio comes in its at the fastest setting. You can customize the radio as far as the model name. You can put your own name in it. Again, a lot of the same features from previous radios. The nice thing with this, though, again, it's a little bit lighter. It does have some new features. It has just a smaller feeling in your hand. With the previous model, the 7PX, the grip was pretty big, so if you didn't have large hands, the radio seemed kind of big. For me, this took a little bit of adjusting just because I do have really big hands, and once I was able to go in and adjust the trigger, move the trigger a little bit farther away from the palm of my hand, I was able to get basically the same like ergonomic feeling as my previous radio. So it was really easy to transition to once I went through and spent the time and adjusted the trigger, the drop down, the features like that. So again, we have the Futaba T10PX radio system. This is available now. A really, really awesome thing about Futaba is they do have offices here in the US. If you ever have any questions or problems with anything, the radios, receivers can be sent to the facility in Alabama, and they have a full-on service center there. You can go online to futabausa.com and fill out a form, send in whatever products you have, and you don't have to send the radio system out of the country to have any repairs done again, whether it's to the radio or the receiver.